We are going to go through standard form, which is a new form of equations that is mostly used for graphing, I would say. It's the easiest when you're trying to graph things, and we're going to get into why that is here in just a bit. But our learning goals are to graph linear equations using intercepts, and we can write linear equations in standard form. So I already have our standard form written out. You're probably going to need to write this down on your note guide, or at least take notes on this here. But standard form, as you can see here, I've got it listed. Oh, that might not be good. AX plus BY equals C. It allows you to easily find your X and Y intercepts. So how to find the X and Y intercepts? If you want to find your X intercept, all you have to do is plug 0 in for Y. If you want to find your Y-intercept, all you have to do is plug in 0 for X. And that's basically it. The reason that works is because on my, if I were to, for example, have a line like this, right? There's my line. If I'm trying to find my X-intercept, it's right there. And whatever that point is, we don't know what the number is because I don't have the dashes on there. So we don't know what the number is for the X value of that point. So I'll just put like X. Let me try to redo that here. Let me zoom in here. So there's some number. I don't know how many numbers there are. It could be any number of dashes, but this is somewhere on the X-axis, right? So whatever this is, it doesn't really matter. But some number X. For the Y value, though, we do know that. Since it's on the X-axis, we know that the Y value has to be 0, because it's not up or down, it's on the X-axis. So the Y value of that point has to be 0, which means we can actually plug in 0 for Y into any equation and figure out where the X-axis is. And that's especially easy if they're in this form AX plus BY equals C. Now, C is always just going to be a number, and then A and B are also going to be just numbers. But X and Y, that's what we're going to be plugging into. So it says find the X and Y intercepts. It says of the graph. I think it meant like of this equation, though. So it meant equation. All right, so of this equation, our X and Y intercept. If we want to find our X-intercept, like we had over here, we have to have a 0 in for our Y, okay? So for our X-intercept, I'm basically going to plug a 0 in here. I'm replacing that Y with a 0. Now, what do we have? If this is a multiplication problem, 4 times 0 cancels out. So really, that's gone, which means the plus sign is also gone. And we're just left with 3x equals 24. Well, that's pretty simple to figure out. All we have to do is divide both sides by 3, and we're going to get 6. Okay, done. Now, our Y-intercept. Well, by plugging in a 0 for X, it's 3 times 0. So this cancels out. We're left with 4Y equals 24. So divide both sides by 4. That means Y equals 6. And we're done. Ooh, did I do that first one wrong? Sorry, I did. That would be an 8. Okay. So the first one was actually an 8. 3 times 8 equals 24. Hopefully you caught that. But that's it. Now that we have both of those, it would be really easy to graph this because, you don't have to do this right now. We're going to get into this in a second. But you know your Y-intercept would be at 6. That's somewhere right there. Your X-intercept would be at 8. Maybe that's over there. And you could draw your line, and your graph is done. Okay? So on the next one, it says, what are the X and Y intercepts of the graph of 5x minus 6y? So x int is for X-intercept, Y-intercept my x-intercept. Plugging in a 0 for y gives me my x-intercept. So basically I can just cover this up. 5 divided by, or sorry, we're dividing both sides by 5. 60 divided by 5 is 12 for our x-intercept. For our y-intercept, basically plugging in and canceling out that x. I still have to have that negative there. Even though it's a subtraction problem, that just turns into a negative then. Divide both sides by -6. And we get -10. Next one. X-intercept, y-intercept. Plugging in a 0 for y to get our x-intercept. So 3 times what gives me 12? That's 4. Plugging in a 0 for x to get my y-intercept. This would have to be a, well, let's divide both sides by -1. Cancel, cancel. Y would equal -12. Why don't you try this one on your own? Go ahead and pause this video now. Try it on your own, see if you can get it. Okay, coming back from the pause now. Plugging in a 0 for y will give us our x-intercept. Plugging in a 0 for y, we will get a 4, because 3 times 4 is 12. Plugging in a 0 for x will give us our y-intercept, and that would give us a 6, because 2 times 6 is 12. Okay, graphing in standard form. So now we're doing the same thing, except now we're graphing. And like I said, it makes it pretty easy with these, because we can go pretty quick. So plugging in a 0 for x would cancel it out. So our if we plug in a 0 for x, that gives us our y-intercept. So our y-intercept on this one would be divide by -2, divide by -2. -2 divided by -2 would be a 1. And our x-intercept, we're going to have to plug in a 0 for y. And look, we already have it solved. It says x equals -2. So our x-intercept was -2. Our y-intercept is 1. And now this isn't going to give us a very big line, so I'm actually going to continue with this slope. It looks like it's rise 1, run 2. So rise 1, run 2 can continue. There we go. Throw your arrows on the end. But see how easy that is to graph. We really only need those 2 points, and especially when you do these on Alex, you only need 2 points to graph a line anyway, so those will be perfect. Okay, next one, my x-intercept. Plugging in a 0 for y. X would equal 10. Okay. And then plugging in a 0 for x, our y-intercept would be 4. Y-intercept is 4, x-intercept is 10. I'm not going to do the slope this time, but it'll be something like this. Next one, x equals 3. This is a tough one. This one actually isn't in that form. I just wanted to hit on this really quickly. If you have an x equals 3 equation, basically what that means is you have a line going through the x-axis at 3. So this is the x-axis at 3. My line is going to be a perfectly straight up and down line, vertical line going through 3. For the y one, so y equals -1, that means I'm going to have a line going through the y-axis at -1. which would make it a horizontal one. Looks like that's it for this video.